Okay, I have three keywords for this lecture today. The first is motion, second is color, the third is Kodak. So we're gonna start with motion. We want to talk about the new technology, the new vision, uh, some tipping points in the development of technology and how it changes society, how it brought us actually to the modern world. Right? In the modern world, we see the world differently from how we used to, and photography gave us that set of eyes. Motion. How is it related to photography? Well, before photography came along, people had tried their best to copy, to paint the motion or an object that is in motion. For example, a horse. How do you paint a horse that's running? Where are the placement of the four legs as the horse is running? And there was a misconception. Well, there was a kind of very universal way of representing a horse that's running. That is, you've probably seen it. The legs, two stretched forward, the hind side stretched backwards, like all stretched outside of underneath the horse, the body of the horse. So it's like that, and then hand sides also, the hand limbs is also stretching to the back. But then this guy, Edward Muybridge, who spent a long time, took him like 5 years to finally develop a way to capture a horse, a continuous shot, a series of continuous shots of a horse that's running. And that proved that the previous representation of the horse running is wrong, is a misconception. Never do you see a horse. If the horse runs slow enough for the eyes to capture, never will you see the all four legs stretched outside of underneath the body. They leave the ground. Yes, they all leave the ground at a certain moment, but they're all underneath the body of the horse, as you can see here. So there is this great sensation that photographers like Edward Muybridge kicked off in the whole world to reconsider, to reprocess the way we see motion, how we move. Because before motion, it's hard to capture certain poses, right? When someone's in the motion, is constantly moving. But the photography now, this new technology was able to stop, right, all the different moments, to capture all the different moments, to help scientists study the motion much better. And then for painters, for artists, to represent that motion more accurately, more naturalistically. And that cleared a lot of misconception, and that kickstarted a new wave of curiosity. Right, photos like this changed the world. Photos like this, but the question comes: how was this series of photograph captured? Because it's got to be a new technology, right? It's pretty advanced technology that Muybridge developed. Otherwise, he wouldn't spend that many years, wouldn't have to spend that many years to figure out how to come up with photos, a series of photos like this. We're gonna get to it. Why was this picture taken? Well, I've just explained. So how was this picture taken? Is our next, the next thing that we want to answer. This is a little summary of that Muybridge's invention about photographing objects in motion. I'll let you read it, but I want to move on to this where the experiment took place. Oh, and by the way, this is what I talked about, how paintings used to represent a horse when they're running, and it was Muybridge, right, who overturned this misconception with his very scientific experiment. Okay, back to this experiment. This is the scene. This is, you see this, all 24 different cameras, shutters, right, all wired to this line right here, and the horse starts right here. And Edward Muybridge, this is actually happened, this scene, this experiment actually happened in California, in Palo Alto, in Stanford, University of Stanford, where Leland Stanford, the founder of the university, who's the ex-governor of California, who's also this billionaire, who's one of the major investors of the railroad, of the Transcontinental Railroad in the United States. And he had a ranch, he had a horse. He really wanted to capture how his horse runs. And then he hired Edward Muybridge. And Muybridge spent a long time trying to, and then came up with this way, right? The horse, as the horse is running across this lane right here, the horse's hooves trigger each wire. It triggers each wire and it connects to the camera, capture photograph, and as the horse is running all the way, each of the shutter speeds will open. The cap, right? The camera was open and snap. The shot was snapped. So for the first time, we're able to see the continuous movement, continuous picture of a horse, and later on, human beings or objects or other kinds of animals, right? So this is the advancement that Muybridge created. But I want to remind you that for Muybridge to be able to set up this very advanced experiment, some kind of advancement, some kind of development had to happen before this. That is, the shutter speed has to be quick enough. In this case, in Muybridge's case, the shutter speed now can be decreased to 1 in 1,000 seconds, 1 in 500, 1 in 1,000 seconds, so that they correspond with the moment, right? Because the horse is moving. If the shutter speed is too slow, then by the time you capture enough light, you get enough light to show the image. The scene's already gone. The horse is gone to the next scene. So shutter speed, that's a huge advancement at the time. But motion is the key to Muybridge's invention. And with that invention, there are other people, they started to go even further to try to represent. How about representing a animal or a movement that's happening, to project that movement, that continuous images, or nowadays we call it movie. This is the precursor of films, of movies, of motion pictures, what we call the zoopraxiscope. This is a zoopraxiscope. This is a plate of zoopraxiscope. Zoopraxiscope. How did they do that? Well, they just like Muybridge, they capture a series of photographs, right, and then cut them out and place them on the wheel, on the edges, on the edge. Let me see where I find it. On the edge of the wheel, one after another, and then you put it in front of the projector. And then as it goes round and round, round and round, and you were able to see on the screen that the pictures, right, they're moving, and you get that illusion. Your eyes can get that illusion that an object, an animal, is moving. And that's the first time in human history that we're able to capture motion, or to present motion, or to record motion. And this is the device. This is a projector, zoopraxiscope. You have the wheel right here. You have all the images here, and you have this light coming through here and project the wheel on the wall, and you get that objects. You get that objects moving. Get another view of, and we have another view of the this device, zoopraxiscope. You put the plates on there, and again, just like Muybridge's sensation, the sensation that Muybridge created, this zoopraxiscope was at the time kind of like movie theater, something that's pretty ritzy for people to entertain themselves with. Of course, science never stops. We have scientists or artists like Thomas Eakins, who's pretty active, right? Ever since, or even before, he's really active. Even before photography came along, but he's continued to be active in experimenting with all things photography. And in this case, he uses the same theory, the same logic. You know, a jump, right? An athlete in the series of motion that he's jumping triggers all different wires to trigger the shutter and capture a continuous movement to study the motion. And this is for the first time in history, in human history, that we can see we can analyze the different moments in a motion. And in this case, an athlete who's jumping. And again, that's how we found out a lot of representation of painters, artists, a lot of representations on paintings, how they represent motions. It's all wrong, because that's just coming out of the imagination, that they thought the motion happened like that. But then photography proved them wrong. That's about motion. New technology gives us new vision about motion. And in turn, photography changed how artists view the world now, right? For example, if you've probably heard of Impressionism, you've probably heard of the start of modern painting, how to capture light, how to capture activities from day-to-day life. Artists like Edgar Degas, who started to, right, because the influence of photography, who started to shift his attention to capturing dancers who moved a lot. They do move a lot. In this case, a ballet dancers. In his whole lifetime, Degas painted all sorts of dancers, especially ballet dancers, and he studies. Right. In this case, this is an example of him studying his postures, trying to capture that different moment in that motion of a ballet dancer. Because he must have seen photographs of them. So photography and art and artists, right? Well, photography came out to be for a long time and some kind of scientific thing. It's just like technology, right? Just what like we talked about last time. Not that many people would think of it in the realm of art, of artistic expression. It's just some kind of device that some scientists play with. But now, as this device able to change how we see the world, they changed how the artists see the world, and they changed the artists' interests in the world. Now they're very interested in motion. Marcel Duchamp, or in French, Marcel Duchamp, who painted this nude descending a staircase, oil on canvas. Well, this is a photograph. Marcel Duchamp's is oil on photograph on canvas, but he's replicating, right? He's trying to mimic that sense of motion, the sense of movement through painting. He's trying to cater to you a short film of how a nude is descending a staircase, a continuous movement on one two-dimensional surface. It's impossible, right? But it's an experiment by Marcel Duchamp, and this experiment, this kind of inspiration was triggered, right, by photography, by scientists like Thomas Eakins, himself also a painter, very great painter, to study the world through what we think as art, like oil paint. And they came to the United States, right, with the show, what we call the Armory Show in 1913. There's this show that artists from United States, they picked all the what was considered avant-garde artworks from Europe and had an exhibition in New York, in the Armory in New York. And that also created a huge first sensation, but also controversial topics. Because in the conventional or very traditional artistic eyes, paintings like this doesn't represent anything, or doesn't worth anything, right? This would be the paintings that we are used to, not Duchamp's. But and along with all these different objects, right? Abstract objects, impressionists, artworks, is photography. The devices of photography, the whole system of photography, they came to the United States. Of course, some cartoonists poke fun of paintings like this, like Duchamp's nude standing the staircase, make fun of it, saying that it's just a chaotic scene that doesn't show anything, that just rebellions of art in a group of artists. But that's how it came to the United States photography. And then later, the United States, the first half of the 20th century, it was the United States who took over Europe actually, and make and populate the technology or the art or the practice of photography. So that is the second word. Oh, that is the first word, motion. The second key word would be Kodak, invented. The first portable, relatively portable, not as portable as our cell phones, the first portable camera invented by George Eastman, which is in the United States. He named it Kodak, lightweight and loaded ready for anyone. You press the button, we do the best. We do the rest. You put the negative in the camera, and then you can develop the positive in the studio, in the darkroom. And that creates a whole host, the rise of hobby photographer. And first it was, when this kind of portable cameras, when they were first invented, it was used in real estate purposes a lot. Right, something that doesn't move so much, the real estate, the architectures. But the influence of this portable camera spreads, and that's the advancement in the technology. For example, used to be a wet plate clothing. Now Eastman has started a dry plate company to make it even more convenient. You don't have to apply the dry plate. You don't have to apply the plate wet to capture that negative. And you can roll it in like this and put it in the camera, so that the camera gets smaller and smaller until, right, with all these new technologies, the dry plate, the roll film holder, or bromide paper to develop it, you get a small camera like this. Even a child can hold it in her hand to take photograph. This is unheard of. This is something that's make people in awe in the early 20th century, and it's relatively affordable. What's called the Brownie camera, the first in the world, first portable camera in the world, and was sold widely in the United States as well as in the world. And it looks like this. This is first Kodak, what we call the Kodak #1. It's first like a box, and then later they even fold the box. They were able to make the box foldable into something like this. Right, you stretch this camera right here, and once you're done, you put it back and fold it back in that box. It's kind of like collapsible dark room that you can carry with you. The Kodak #1. The third keyword is color. Color photograph was invented early 20th century, late 19th century, early 20th century by the Lumiere brothers from France, but later they founded their business. They established their business in the United States because that's where the market, the bigger market, was at the time. Well, they were also the pioneers in developing movies. But in terms of photography, they discovered a very interesting way to retain the color on that positive film. That is potato starch. Potato starch. What is that? Well, it's a process. The Lumiere brothers they discovered this developing process called a autochrome. And to how did they do that? Autochrome. Autochrome. It's you have a plate again. It's a glass plate and it's or paper plate that made out of very little pellets of potato starch that were each dyed into different colors. At the very beginning, just the red, green, and a red, a green, and velvet, 3 different colors. And when you were developing it, the particles, the potato starch reacts to their coordinating colors, to the light. When you developed it, reacts to the coordinating colors and reveals that color on the positive. And yes, and that's a game changer at the time, and it's been that technology, potato starch, has been used for 3 decades before other new technologies, other light or color sensitive technologies came along in the 30s or 40s. And this is the result. It's actually really good to capture the vivid color, right? This is all potato starch particles to capture the color of flour, in this case, autochrome. And if I can invite you to imagine, for those studios, right? If they need to, they have studios who help people, right? Because they have handheld foldable cameras, and they have the negative, and they send it to the studios to ask them to help develop it. And those studios, they would have boxes of potatoes in the back of the studio for this practical use in developing films. Quite a spectacle at the time. Potato starch for color images. What is autochrome? And this is the process of the autochrome. And it's been popular, the king of photographic world, for the next 30 years, until it was overtaken by Kodachrome, color-sensitive films, an Agfacolor film, and a compact, easy-to-use 35mm camera, which allowed photographers to blend in, move fast, and render a rapidly changing world in bright colors. So this is another example of the autochrome. For the first time that people were able to see things in real color, because that's what the world really is. Before autochrome came along, before Lumiere brothers invented autochrome, people sometimes they can see color photograph, but they were painted on. People using all kinds of pigments to paint on black and white photograph. So it's a pursuit of trying to reveal the world as close to reality as possible. And autochrome is a game changer. So in this lecture, the new technology, new vision, right? This two go hand in hand. As soon as we have the new technology, it changes how we see the world and how we interpret it, how we represent it. And there are 3 keywords today that we discussed: motion, Kodak, and autochrome, which is color.